Hey, everybody. So, I asked the question um, on the community feed of the channel to kind of see, what questions you guys had that you wanted me to answer. And one of them that I got, which I thought was a great question, whoever asked me that question, thank you. Mwah. And it was on how to integrate the ego. Okay. And here's the thing. The very first thing you have to do in integrating the ego is stop making the ego an enemy. Okay. Because the mistake that people make is they try to make their ego the enemy, and this is going to prevent the healing necessary. Why? Because of what the ego is. The ego is nothing more than the constructed idea of the self. It's the constructed idea of who you are and your identity. So it doesn't matter what kind of ego it is. That's what it is. Whether you could consider it a positive ego or a negative ego, it's still all ego. You can have a spiritual ego. It's just the constructed idea of the self, which is based on beliefs, insecurities, fears, perceptions, and wounding. Okay, so no matter what ego you construct for yourself, it is still made of those basic foundational things that create the ego. So your ego is based on beliefs. How can your ego be based on beliefs? It's based on things that you believe about who you're supposed to be, what you believe is right or wrong, what you think you should or should not be. Okay. So if you have a certain belief about being a certain way, then that's going to make your ego go maybe in the direction of being that, or in the opposite direction if you have a negative belief about being that way. All of your insecurities, your fears, your perceptions, and whatever wounding you have, that's what's going to create the makeup of your individual ego. So the thing is, integration of the ego cannot be made to happen. You can't set out, I'm going to integrate my ego. It's something that must happen naturally. And it happens as these beliefs are faced. Okay, so we get rid of, faulty perceptions and inaccurate beliefs. This is where we merge left and right brain thinking. Okay. Then we deal with the insecurities, dealing with your insecurities, your fears, and whatever wounding you have. As you begin to do this, a natural process will happen where you'll begin to move towards more of that ego integration. Ego integration is prevented by resistance and rejection of aspects of the self. Okay, so this is the biggest thing that I see that gets in the way of people being able to integrate the ego. It is beliefs that they have about their ego or about something being wrong with them. And this is what's going to prevent you from facing the truth of yourself. You cannot integrate your ego if you cannot face the truth of yourself. If you're, say for instance, you're the type of person who is always seeking validation. So that means that seeking of validation is coming from an insecurity, right? So that is going to be built into the ego. The way your ego presents itself, or the way that you see yourself, is going to be under the veil of that need for validation and that insecurity. Well, if you can't admit to yourself that you're insecure and that you're seeking validation and that you're people pleasing and you don't feel seen, that you don't feel valid unless someone else validates you. Say, for instance, you can't admit that truth to yourself. You can't accept that about yourself. You'll never be able to integrate your ego. Okay, you'll continue to act out of that wounding. So it's the wounding, the insecurities, the fears, the perceptions, and the beliefs that keep the ego alive in a sense. Now, it's always going to be alive, but when this merging happens and the integration of the ego occurs, how can I explain it? Because it's not like it ceases to exist, but it's not a controlling factor. It's not about the way how can I say it? You lose such a tight grip on who you are, and your ego becomes more so of a way to express yourself in the world, a way to express your soul in the world. So you kind of start seeing the ego as just a physical, like, channel almost into the physical reality. But you know who you really are behind all of that. But if you didn't have an ego, or a way, a body, a vessel, or something, some way to get to channel that into this reality, you couldn't do it. That's the best way I can, really describe that. So you cannot integrate if there's still resistance or rejection of aspects of the self. If there's still parts of you that you can't accept because you have a belief or a judgment against being that way, that you think it's terrible to be insecure, if you can't face your fears, if you can't admit things to yourself, like you're afraid of intimacy, or you're afraid of love, or you're afraid of being taken advantage of, you have too much fear to trust, if you can't face the dark aspects of yourself, you cannot integrate the ego. Okay, you have to be able to be willing to be 100% honest with yourself. And integration becomes the final and full acceptance of self as is. Okay, so a lot of people fail to experience this wholeness and this integration and merging of the ego because they can never accept themselves as they are. There's kind of this perception that when you become better, right, then you're worthy. You can love yourself when you stop doing this. I can love myself when I can get beyond, maybe secrets in my past, or a dark part of myself, or when I can get past the fact that I'm unforgiving. When I stop being unforgiving, then I can love myself. And it's like, no, you need to love yourself as an unforgiving person, because that's what you are, and that's the truth. And I'm just using that because that was actually mine in real life. So you have to just be fine with the fact that you're an unforgiving person. You have to love yourself into the wounding that created that. You didn't become an unforgiving person because you were just born that way. You may have had some type of predisposition to being that way, but there was certain pains and experiences that made you not want to forgive. There's anger that's there that you haven't been able to resolve. Why? Because you judge yourself for being angry. You don't think anger is appropriate. So since you haven't allowed the anger, you're not able to forgive. So you're an unforgiving person. But if you can't accept and love yourself as you are, as the quote unquote bad thing, as the angry person, the rageful person, the unforgiving person, the mean person, the antisocial person, the whatever person, okay? Look, as the thief if you steal. Whatever it is that your thing is, you need to be able to accept yourself and love yourself as that. Now, as those wounds begin to heal, there's a natural integration that will occur. So it's not something that you force to happen or that you can make happen. You just have to continue the journey, and the only path is the path of truth. So you have to just make up in your mind that you're not going to lie to yourself. You're not going to reject anything that you find in yourself, and you're going to love yourself no matter what. No matter what you find. And as you do that, that process will naturally occur. Okay, so I hope that answers that question. And actually, guys, there will be a part in the next boot camp that I'm going to do, the self-love boot camp, which I haven't got a date for it. There's been like a ton of stuff going on. So once I get that organized and I have a date for it, in the self-love boot camp, there's a part that's going to be covering, helping you through this. That's what my boot camps do. They take you through all of these processes that you need to go through. They tell you what questions to ask and walk you hand in hand every step of the way through it. So that's going to be the next one. And there is a part about understanding that deeper self-love in a way and on a deeper level than most of the information that's out there, because we hear a lot of stuff about love yourself, but we're not really shown that process to make that a real thing within ourselves and in our lives. Okay, so I hope that was beneficial. I love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.